Good evening, and thank you for joining us on this International Women's Day. I'm Courtney Marshall. I'm the President and CEO of the Wichita State University Alumni Association, and it's my pleasure to welcome you this evening. Tonight, the Alumni Association is partnering with Wichita State Athletics for a Shock Talk discussion with a trio of former multi-sport Shocker female athletes. To introduce our Shocker sports women, I'd like to bring in our moderator for tonight, Gretchen Torline. Welcome, Gretchen.
Thank you very much, Courtney.
Gretchen is a familiar face to any of our former student athletes and current ones. She's a 1994 graduate and serves as the Director of Athletic Academic Services. And I'll turn it over to you to introduce tonight's guests.
Great. Thank you so much, Courtney. Good evening, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you to Shock Talk. I'd like to first introduce Keomi Johnson. Keomi graduated from WSU in 2000 with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. As a member of the WSU women's basketball team, she earned both first team all-conference honors and scored over 1,000 points in her career. She was also a member of the track and field team her freshman year and the softball team her senior year. Today, Keomi is a sergeant with the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Department. And next, I'd like to introduce Terri Moses. Terri graduated from WSU in 1980 and 1990 with a bachelor's and a master's degree in administration of justice. While in undergrad, Terri was a member of the women's softball and basketball teams. Terri went on to become a deputy chief at the Wichita Police Department, the highest ranking ever held by a woman. Today, Terri is the Director of Safety Services for USD 259. Next, I'd like to introduce Deana Torgerson. Deana graduated from WSU in 1996 with a bachelor's degree in graphic design and in 1998 with a master's degree in sport management. Deana was a member of the women's basketball team and an All-American track and field athlete for Wichita State. She is a member of the Missouri Valley Conference track and field all-century team and was inducted to the WSU Hall of Fame in 2002. Today, Deana is a marketing project and proofing specialist at BG Products. Okay, that is our panel for tonight, and I'm going to start with the first question for Terri Moses. Terri, can you describe for us what college athletics was like for women during your time, especially in contrast to your male counterparts?
Well, we were discussing this before we started this evening, and Title IX was enacted in 1972, but I came to Wichita State in 1978, and with no law, nothing happens quickly. And when I came to Wichita State, there were two athletic departments, men's and women's. There was not one. And the women's athletics department wasn't even on campus. It was in a small building off of 17th and Hillside. The discrepancies were huge, but at the time you really didn't know it because you didn't know what you were missing. But you weren't allowed on the basketball court when the men were on. There were no times. If they wanted to practice longer, they could practice longer, and you had to wait until they got off the court. Travel, meals, lodging, all of that was just tremendously different between the two male and female athletics. It was amazing, the difference. And now I see the strides that we've made, and I'm so proud of the accomplishments of everybody who's fought to make sure there's equity.
Great, yeah, huge discrepancy. Deana, did you notice inequities between your teams and male teams during your time competing in the early 90s? If so, what were some of the inequities that you witnessed? I think we're having some technical difficulties. We can't hear Deana. So we might come back to that. So let's go ahead and move on. Deana, can we hear you?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, They were very slight inequities when I was there between the men's and women's basketball team. We might have got 2 pair of shoes for the whole season. The men maybe got 6 pairs. I don't know exact numbers. Our locker room was pretty bare, looked like a high school locker room, and the men's locker room was pretty nice. Track may have differences there. Everywhere, I'm not sure. If the men got to fly places, it wouldn't have surprised me. I think there were more inequities between basketball and track. We would, have very limited meal money when we go on trips, and we would stay maybe 4 athletes per room versus with basketball there was 2. And track didn't even have a locker room at that time. We changed in a restroom with the cockroaches in a lower level of, at that time, of Coke Arena than Levitt Arena. So that's where more of the inequities lied, was between some of your basketball versus track.
Yeah, that was definitely, I can remember that. So the next question is for Keomi. Keomi, can you speak specifically to your experience as a Black student athlete at WSU? What experiences made you feel included in the athletic department and in the university? And what experiences were isolating for you?
Well, I don't really recall any negative energy as far as being a Black student athlete. I think it was more of a culture shock for me coming to the city of Wichita in itself, and also being on campus. While I was on campus, there wasn't a lot of people that looked like me. So I felt very isolated in the classrooms. And also as a young Black kid coming from Cleveland, where I grew up, our high school, junior high was 97%, 98% Black. It was quite the difference coming here to Wichita. As a young Black teenager, I felt that there wasn't a lot for me or others to do, outside of the athletic department, outside of school. I remember when I first got here, the first club I went to was a country bar. I never listened to country music before. I was used to R&B and hip hop music. But I can tell you this, I felt most comfortable in the athletic department at the time. Like Deana said, it was Henry Levitt Arena. Felt comfortable at the gym, in the weight room, study halls. The athletic department did a great job of making us, everyone, feel comfortable. And that's where my safe place was. But outside of that, Wichita took a little bit of getting used to, as well as, walking around on campus and being in the classroom. And it wasn't unusual for me to walk into a classroom and I was the only Black person in the room. So that took a little bit getting used to.
Yeah, but you definitely got used to Wichita because now it's your home and you're here and you didn't go back to Cleveland. So that's great to hear. Keomi, do you have anything what about the inequities between male and female, like when you were playing? Did you feel anything?
There were things like when I first got here, I thought that the men they had a contract, I think, with Nike, and I think we had Converse or something like that, and then we later on switched to Nike. I think that they had way more chartered flights than we did. We flew commercial most of the time. It felt like that we had to do a lot more fundraisers than the men's team and get out there in the public and try to raise money for our department because we weren't getting the same amount of fans and coming to the games. So it was things like that. Obviously the gap was starting to shorten a little bit, but for travel wise, I can think what I think of is probably the biggest difference at the time when I was there.
Right, right. Okay, Deana, I'd like to ask you, you competed in two sports, basketball and track and field while at WSU, and being a collegiate two-sport athlete is rare, especially with as well as you did in both of them. But how did you balance both sports, and how were you able to find success in both?
Well, you burned the candle at both ends. Used about every daylight hour there was. I really had to communicate with the track and field staff to let them know when I could practice. In the fall and winter, basketball was my focus, and I would try to participate with those team activities and practices, and then schedule a track practice with a coach or on my own many times after basketball practice or between classes or whenever I had available time. So there was a lot of communication, and track was great with it. They really did work with me and my schedule. Once the spring came around, then my focus shifted to track, and I would participate with the team track practices and at those times. And basketball always came secondary. And if I could make a team event for basketball, then I would. But if the focus shifted in to track. I think doing both sports certainly helped me be successful in both. I did all weightlifting with the track team. And I think that strength that I got from doing the explosive lifts with track carried over and helped me in basketball make me stronger and be able to shoot easier. And then doing track, it kind of provided me an outlet to, not always focus, have a short memory, a bad game, or and not just dwell on it. So I think doing both helped. It helped, certainly learn how to prioritize and time management for sure. I wouldn't recommend it to athletes today to try to do both. I just don't think there's enough hours, and there's limits to your body, and a body needs to rest. And I rarely got any rest, so I would not recommend it today.
Yeah, I use you as an example a lot as well, because, majoring in graphic design, you had a lot of afternoon long lab classes. And I do remember how well the track coaches worked with you, that you were out there. And it helps that track is an individual sport, and you were javelin. And so they could practice with you. But I do know how accommodating they were to you, practicing at in the morning when you had all those afternoon classes.
Yeah, most definitely. And even basketball, they did. I think one time towards my end of my career, I think say our standard practice time was between 10 or something, and I wouldn't have a class on. They did, I think, on that day, were able to switch it so that we had practice later that day, so I could get to most of practice and not miss it. So, basketball is also accommodating, and they allowed me to do the lifting with track team, to keep that in action during the off season, track as well. So, yes, class wouldn't choose the easiest class schedule or major and try to do sports. Yeah, there was some definite challenges there with long lab classes.
Right. And Terri, you were a two-sport athlete as well. Can you kind of address the same thing, how it was for you to play two sports?
Keomi said that the gym was your safe place. And I actually had no intentions of playing softball, but was playing basketball. And friendships came about, and somebody said, hey, come over and play softball. And I ended up walking on the softball team and absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. And just like Keomi said, that's your safe place. That's where you went every day. And having that continuation. The one thing I valued that Deana, said that you can't do today, and I've seen it when I've mentored some athletes, is the change in sports and the fact that you could change your focus from being basketball 12 months out of the year. I really enjoyed that. And I know that's one of the hard parts about today's athletes, that you have to be so committed to one sport that it is a 12-month process. With two sports, you had the opportunity to change your focus, change your coach, change your, even a little bit that group you worked with. So in my time, two sports, I think, was very enjoyable. It was a great way to keep that connection with school and to keep you positively involved with the university.
Did you have other people that were two sport athletes as well back then?
Not the year that I played. I think we did have somebody that did, like Deana. We had somebody that did a little bit of track on the side, some individual things, but not a full-time track athlete like Deana was. I think it was more an individual sport.
Excellent, thank you. Now I'm going to move on to some questions that are just open-ended. Anybody just jump in, whoever. I'd like to hear from all of you on these. But what are some of the challenges you faced in your career because of gender, and in what ways did you work to overcome them?
I'll go first. I'm the oldest. Keomi and I share this chain career, law enforcement. And in school, when you were in school, it was very open. People were talking about change, just like they were talking about Title IX. And honestly, you got this false sense of the fact that the world was open to law enforcement, to women. And when you walked in the door, you did kind of get that, because the upper echelon realized that they needed women in law enforcement back in the 80s. But you got a rude awakening after you left the offices in the safe place and you went out on the street. And very few of the men on the police department accepted women. It was very, very much of a challenge. And the other thing that was surprising is the community didn't accept women. You were told over and over again that you didn't belong here. There was no place for you. And very, very fortunate. Went back and got my master's degree, and again got reinvigorated into the fact that there was change out there. Worked hard to overcome those obstacles. I was told more than once I was going to be fired. It was a different world, just like it was athletics. I'm hoping in both athletics and in law enforcement those rules are changing. But I know the glass ceiling still exists. It's out there for a lot of people who try to raise up through the ranks, whether it's to become a coach or to become an administrator in a law enforcement agency.
Thanks, Terri. Kay, Deana, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just to piggyback off of what Terri was saying about law enforcement. It's a tough field for females. You have to go out there, you have to get your boots dirty with the guys. You have to prove that you're tough, that you can take it. Usually, when you first start as a female, you get called out if there's a child on scene, or you're there to comfort another female on a call, and they automatically will call a female to help out. And so the times are slowly changing in law enforcement. You have more women of rank in a lot of different agencies. You have women that are in specialty positions such as K9, SWAT teams, things of that sort. So it's a tough field, and it takes. Sometimes at the beginning I would come home and question if it was something I really wanted to do, but 20 years later I'm still there. So it's definitely relatable to athletics also. Being a female athlete, you seem like you're always being compared to the male athletes.
Yeah, that's a good point. Deana, have you experienced anything?
No, to be quite honest, I don't feel like I've been held back or faced any challenges in my career due to my gender. Honestly, I think that at times, being a female who had an extreme interest in sports has helped me, because I kind of was, I don't know, looked to or put in forth like I was a little bit of an oddity, like, oh, I don't know anything about sports, but this person does, and guess what? She's even female, and she did well at them. So it was interesting that my boss for a long time would, when male clients would be in the office, that he would point that out, almost as if he was getting street cred off of my interest in sports. So it was pretty funny. But I don't think I felt like I've been promoted based on the skills and abilities, and I haven't been held back, fortunately. But I can say that I did interview once for a position with a gentleman who right away I could tell he was a real pig, and I knew that I would not do very well in that position. So I quickly pulled myself out of that job option to avoid having to subject myself to perhaps some bias and mistreatment based on my gender.
Yeah, that's interesting. People have asked me the same thing, and I don't think, I don't know, I've been doing this for 30 years, so I don't feel like, and when I started, it was all women in the department, so in our student services, so I don't think that's been a deal for me either. I do want to ask you all about if you have overcome, try to share a story with us of a time that maybe you have overcome a difficulty in your athletic career, and what are some resources maybe from campus or the athletic department that help you persevere? Anybody's free to go.
I can start, I guess. Am I on? I can't. Oh, there we go. My senior year, my mother passed away right before we were going to take a big road trip to Hawaii, unexpectedly, and I had to immediately fly home and be with my family that week. And the night of the funeral, I'll never forget this. My dad called me in and said that, hey, pack your stuff. You're going to Hawaii. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm staying here. And my dad had been on the phone with the athletic department, and they had got me a flight back to Wichita from Cleveland that night. So I packed, unpacked, and I got back to Wichita, packed for Hawaii. The athletic department took me to the airport, and I joined the team in Hawaii the next day. And I couldn't thank them enough for doing that. Never knew it was coming. I wasn't expected to make the trip. My dad said, "Hey, there's nothing else that you can do here. Go be with your team." And the athletic department and him, they made it happen. So I'm forever grateful for that. Not only when I got back, they didn't leave me alone. They wouldn't let me be in my room alone. They wouldn't, when I got to Hawaii, I had to be in a room with somebody constantly. I had all kinds of access to people that if I needed to talk to, counselors or anything. So it was just just unbelievable help from the staff there. And I'll never forget that. So I was truly grateful for it.
Yeah, I do remember that. And I feel like it always felt, at least to me, that I felt like the whole athletic department, not only athletic department, but Wichita State and the city really kind of came and really kind of took you under their wing, and everybody felt for you so much. And at the games, at the home games, I mean, like I can even get teary thinking about it, just how emotional it was, how emotional you were playing, and how everybody just rallied around and just like wanted to help you any way they could. So I definitely remember that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you probably over 100 cards, and I still have them till this day, in a bag, in my in storage, and so the city really rallied behind me during that tough time as well, and that's another big reason why I'm still here.
That's good. I love that. Terri, Deana, do you have anything? Deana, I know you do. Or maybe she's not here with us.
I didn't get 100 cards. I didn't get 100 cards like Keomi did, but I did get one letter that was addressed just to my name and Wichita State University, and somehow it made it to me. And it was just from someone in the community, but I received that letter. I'd gone through it in spring of '96. I was diagnosed with cancer literally just weeks after my senior year of basketball. I was preparing for the track season, and I had immediate surgery to remove a tumor. And then 3 days later, I started chemotherapy. So not a lot of time to process everything, and certainly a shock when you think you're the strongest and in the best shape of your life, and to have a doctor tell you that you have cancer. Shortly after my diagnosis, I remember having a conversation with my parents and doctors, and we were talking about where I would want to complete the treatments. Did I want to go back home to Topeka where my family was, or stay in Wichita? And I never wavered on this decision, and I knew pretty immediately that I wanted to stay in Wichita. And it's because of that sense of family that the athletic department had provided me, my teammates, coaches, the staff there at the athletic department were fantastic. My teammates were crazy. They would go on food runs for me when I, randomly would want something to eat during chemotherapy. And I, if I'd all of a sudden, it would be strange things like I'd crave a Wendy's baked potato and then something else from some other restaurant. And they wouldn't care that they'd have to drive halfway across town to get those two items, but they would bring it to me. They even helped me shave my head when my hair started to fall out due to the chemo, and gave me bandanas, and, they were just very supportive. My coaches, they were always checking in on me. The department staff was always checking in. There was a trainer that actually, at one point during my treatments, I needed to have shots on a daily basis. And you can imagine it's kind of hard to give yourself a shot, but this trainer would come over every morning and give me the shot. And she would also many times drive me to doctor's appointments if I was too ill or too weak to get myself there. So, the support was there, and I knew it would be. And, I will never forget all those people that helped. I even had a Missouri Valley Conference player at a different school. She played at Drake, and about 6 to 9 months, I think, before my cancer diagnosis, she had a very similar diagnosis. Even connected through, I think, coaches, and we ended up chatting with those treatments, and he was able to share all information about her experience and deal with the cancer. So it was someone to be able to plan on being able to take classes faster, but what to the staff and talk about my instructors. They're very willing to work stuff and really.
Okay, I'm not quite sure, Deana. We're having trouble hearing you. I think we're having trouble with Deana. So we're gonna move on, and she can come on. Terri, do you have anything? Anybody else? Any struggles that they had to persevere through?
I certainly can't compare to those two. I can just say the same thing in terms of the support. You know, when I started at Wichita State, I wasn't really actively involved in athletics until the season started. Again, the difference between now and then, basketball, you know, you didn't really have that fall. You didn't start till then. And just the difference in the connectivity and the support that you got once the season started was tremendous. And it stayed that way throughout my career.
Excellent. That's great to hear. Now another question for all of you. Just we'd like to know who some of your mentors were, how they influenced you, if you had anybody special that kind of helped you along the way, who it would be and how they influenced you.
I'd say for me was my high school coach, James Spurrier. He was the first one to plant the thought in my head that I can play college basketball. He went to my parents and said, "Hey, do you know your daughter is good enough to get a scholarship to play basketball?" And we didn't know anything about it. And you know, he got me set up, you know, saying this is the GPA you need.
Uh-oh, I think Keomi's frozen as well. Okay, Terri, you're out. Oh wait, are you okay? Go ahead. Continue.
Okay.
Keith.
And so taking me to camps, I started getting letters. You know, he was a college coach for a small school, and so he knew what it took to put me on a radar to possibly get a scholarship. And you know, obviously, he got my parents interested so they can save a lot of money. And so he is my mentor. And then there's a person on this panel, Gretchen Torline is another mentor of mine. Gretchen didn't take any stuff, man. You know, athletes are always listening to how great they are and, you know, whatever else. And she'll pull you aside and say, get your stuff together. Your grades, or you need to do this. You need a tutor. She would humble you. So she was very hard on us, but we knew it came from a good place. And so I have to say Gretchen Torline is one of my mentors as well.
That's nice, Key. I'll send you money. I'll send you money tomorrow for saying that. Thank you. And thanks for putting it so nicely that I told you to get your stuff together.
Yeah, it was a little bit more explicit than that.
A little harsher than that, but thank you very much. Anybody else, mentors?
I can tell you I had a totally different experience in Keomi. I came from a 1A school in a very, very small town in Kansas. And all of my coaches always were very, very supportive, but probably the biggest supporters are people who really, really challenged me academically and in terms of leadership. And I had a teacher who taught a variety of things in a 1A school who challenged me to take on leadership roles, even a state level, running for state office, something that I'd never dreamed of, kind of like Keomi, rather than seeing athletic skills, which I think just were a part of growing up in a small town, but they saw leadership skills. And that helped me tremendously. And then when I got to Wichita State, one person I really remember was Carol Koenig. Unfortunately, she died a couple years ago, but I took some women's studies classes and she did the same thing. She really, really challenged me to look at what I could do and how I could succeed as a leader. And very, very grateful for the fact that she pushed me, both of those teachers, one in high school and then in college, pushed me to really think outside the box and try to do different things that maybe I wasn't comfortable with.
That's great. That's great. What about, can you think of some moments or opportunities that you wish you would have valued or taken advantage of more in college or in your careers?
I was very, very, very lucky to do an internship with the Wichita Police Department my senior year. And that was my introduction into my career. But I didn't do enough of those kind of things. Again, that's one of the negative things about that athletics, is it limits your ability maybe to do career visits, those kind of things. I was very fortunate that my coaches let me spend the time to do an internship, that were maybe you'd miss a practice or you miss something that you go through that, but certainly value those connections and those relationships that you make. I know those to today you still interact with people who you met 40 years ago.
I think for me, I wish I probably would have hit the books a little bit harder. I went from not knowing what to do as a freshman around Wichita to knowing everything to do as a senior. So I just wish that I would have hit the books a tad bit harder. And other than that, I can't say I have much regrets. I had a blast.
That's great. I love the book comment. I love you, Key. Yeah. Deana, what about you?
I would say along Terry's line, I would definitely wish I would have networked with boosters a little more in college and spent a little more time exploring different career options. If my degree was a little bit ambiguous, so, I could go into marketing, I could go into a design firm, you could do this, do that, and not having any experience in any specific areas really made it challenging to determine exactly
Well, I think we're losing Deana again. Can you hear us, Deana? But I think part of that is also, yeah. I mean, part of that also is being, a two-sport athlete. It's the time commitment really plays a part in being able to do the internships and other stuff, I think, as well. Definitely think we lost her again. Now I have a couple questions. These are probably my favorite. I think I hope we have student athletes listening because they always talk about this. But can you guys address what are some of the transferable skills you learned during your athletic career that have helped you in your career today?
I think as a student athlete, the schedule that we had, it has to prepare you for a lot of things in life. Leaving your dorm room at 7 o'clock and getting back in the morning and getting back 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock after you've gone to study hall and did homework. That in itself prepares you for the workforce. Just, leadership skills, being confident, dependable. A lot of those things, a lot of employers want to see that in their employees. I think for me, it made the transition so much easier than somebody who, in our field, in the law enforcement field, it's a lot of college athletes, and there's also military people. And I think those two fields transfer really well into law enforcement. And so I think I would have had a little bit of a harder time getting into law enforcement if I wasn't a student athlete.
Great, thanks, Key. Terri?
This is always one of my favorite questions because I did used to do some recruiting back when I was within law enforcement. I mean, literally, you can run the gamut of the positive things that you get out of athletics that translate well into a career. Teamwork. I don't know anybody who works anywhere, and especially now we're even seeing it in a Zoom environment. You can work at your home, but you've got to work it as a team to solve problems. The ability to work under stress. One of the things that we love about working in athletics is you can go from running as fast as you can, being as emotionally charged as you can, you immediately have to shut it off when the whistle blows. And that's a very transferable skill in terms of you're fighting for your idea, your thought process, but then you have to back off. Leadership skills. Anybody who's been involved in athletics has got some strong leadership skills. One of the skills that I think is wonderful is resilience. You've got to have a short memory. You may have had a really bad game. You may have gotten beat badly in a game, but you've got to turn around and play the next one. And you've got to be able to ready to go. And so you have to have that resilience. And of course, the ability to learn, the academic side. I mean, we were student athletes, and the word student comes first. And that ability to learn translates very well in the work environment. The fact that you can take on a challenge, something new, learn a totally different elective, a different area, that's what employers are looking for.
Deana?
Yeah, I echo all of those sentiments. Hit it right on the head. I think teamwork has been one of the strongest skills that I can share in my career. And you certainly notice when you have issues with coworkers, you know, a lot of them lack that skill. And I think being able to adapt to challenges, Terri touched on it, but, you know, you're working a project and then something gets changed at the last minute, or you learn new information, so it changes your project. Being able to calmly regroup and go back to the drawing board and adjust a few things, just as you would in basketball. If all of a sudden they threw a zone defense at you, you weren't expecting, you're able to adjust and make game adjustments to be able to, you know, get shots off against the zone. So I think it's, you know, I think all those skills, those that Terri touched on and Keomi, they're great. And if I was in a position of hiring people, I would certainly give a leg up to anybody who had participated in sports.
Right, and I think we also try to teach our student athletes another quality is being able to take criticism. You know, your coach is always telling you, you know, this and that, being able to be critiqued and criticized and not criticized, but, you know, telling you what you didn't do right and what you need to do better. It's sometimes hard for people that aren't, you know, you're an athlete, you're used to that. You're used to your coach telling you, hey, you know, you didn't block out, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and screaming at you. And then when you get in the workforce and somebody tells you, yeah, this isn't good, you didn't do well, you know, a lot of times I feel like I try to tell our athletes that that's character building, and it teaches you when you're in the workforce to be able to take that and work through it. So I think that's another thing as well, because we try to teach our athletes that you make yourself very marketable if you market your characteristics for being a good student, an athlete, to being an employee. So that's I love that question. And our last one I want to talk about, and this is another one that our athletes and our students really want to know about, because some of them have issues with it, is, and we kind of hit on it, but how was your transition from college athletics to the workforce? And what advice would you give graduating seniors for a successful transition? Because a lot of kids, it's hard for them to, you know, stop playing and be what they call muggles, and not have that anymore, and not have that title of, oh, you're the athlete. It's kind of hard for some of them. So can you all touch on that a little bit?
Well, the biggest change for me was you went from being gone all day to you were done with class, and then it was like, oh, I don't have study hall to be at. Oh, I don't have to lift weights. I have this whole full day, and I don't know what to do. You know, for me, my advice is don't wait too late. Don't wait till the very end to start thinking about what you're going to do. I try to have a plan, and I know it's hard. It's easier said than done. But once you've stopped everything, and now you're trying to figure out, well, what I'm going to do now, I think it's not too late, but it definitely puts you in a little bit of a hole. I mean, I think that you should be trying to, get it figured out. I know for me, it was a little bit difficult because I was still trying to decide if I was going to play professionally or not. And I decided not to. And so I was like, I think it's time for me to get out here and get a job. So just having the back of your mind, a plan on what you think you're going to do. And so when you're done, you're not just sitting there staring at a wall.
Great. Deana, Terri?
I mean, I felt like just finding the job is the hardest, but as we mentioned, I think you're well prepared once you get that job. With all those skills that we just talked about, I think your employer will quickly see what you would bring to the job and to the team there that you're going to be working with. So I think the toughest part is finding that job, and like Keomi said, sometimes it's not knowing exactly what you want to do. So it's never too early to start and start researching some of the options that you're considering, so that when it comes down to it, then you can best prepare yourself the next step. As far as missing the everyday competition and practice and athletic exercise and all that stuff, I would certainly encourage not to just stop cold. Search out a recreational program where you can continue to play, work out, exercise on a regular basis, because I think that's important to maintain and make you better and ready to work. So it's tough because you do miss the competition. You can find that. A recreational program adjustment.
Okay, I think we lost her again. Terri?
Yeah, I go back to, again, repetitive here, but I have been so fortunate to find a career that I've done now for 40 years that I absolutely love. And what Keomi said and is very, very right. Start thinking about your passion and what you want to do. Find something that's rewarding to you. I'm very fortunate. I know Keomi is too in law enforcement. I know Deana is too in what she does. That if you enjoy what you do, just like when you played ball, it's not work. It is really, really rewarding to be in law enforcement. It's rewarding to be in public service. I couldn't be any happier in terms of how my career has played out. But in terms of being successful, it's a lot of the same things that you did in athletics. You need to have a schedule. You need to focus on your learning time, your reading time, your stay fit time, your exercise time, being consistent. And just like when you were in athletics and you found that mentor or you found that person that you could go to and talk to, you need the same thing in your work life. You need to have somebody that when you have a bad day, you can run it by them and talk to them about it. So using a lot of those same skills and those resources that you used when you were a student athlete, they all translate very well into the work environment. So work hard, challenge yourself, basically dream about the possibilities that you have and reach out and try to achieve those possibilities, and you'll be successful.
Right. And I think that, and we had a comment here about that. And I think that, I played college basketball back in the day. And I know that when this job came open and I just happened on it, I had a friend who was doing it and she hated athletics. And I thought, I knew I never wanted to be a coach. And I thought, well, wow, that would be great being in the athletic department. And so I actually did it. I did it for free my first year, and never have looked back. I mean, this is absolutely my calling. what I love and what I've done for so long. And I think that Kristen wanted to know how we connect with people, and how to better connect with people in your desired field. And I think that, we try to tell them, use that you're an athlete, use the booster base, talk to people, get out, meet people. It's who you know. A lot of times you get into things and you find out things just who you know. I think that's important. Any other advice along that lines from you all?
The same thing on the academic side. Not only does the university have great context on the athletic side, but within your college or within your career, and I go back to Carol Koenig, she had all kinds of connections within the city. Use those connections, use those opportunities to get to know people, but you've got to reach out. It's not really easy for every academic instructor to come to you and say, this is who you need to go to. You need to find your passion, and you need to ask the questions about, how can I connect, or how can I get connected to people within the city or within the type of career that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, that's important.
I think it's very important. A lot of these people care about the program, and you have to get out there and you have to talk to the fans. You have to engage with them. They're spending their time, their money, they're coming to games, they're supporting you, and you never know who you'll meet in the stands. And just going out there, whether it's signing autographs or talking to kids or whatever it may be, I've met some very interesting people just from engaging with the folks who took the time out of their busy schedules to watch us play. And it wasn't very many back then. So, but I'm still friends with a lot of those folks. And like I said, you never know who someone is, and they may know somebody that may know somebody that's interested in what you're wanting to do. So you have to get out there and you have to talk to people.
Yeah, that's great. Deana? Maybe?
Totally agree. I'm not one that would necessarily, I think I wish I would have connected more with Boost and those that support the program, because only, I just went through a job change and I was looking for a new job. It was, who do I know? Because it's a lot easier to get into a position where you know someone at that company and can recommend and push for the people that you'll be working with, or to make it a situation and to know it's going to be a good fit. So just, like you said, keep talking to people out there. And, I've got people I know that they have coached at a basketball camp, and now they are a worker. It's the world, certainly not.
Perfect. Yeah, it's networking, meet people, use it to your advantage. I think that's very, very important. It is, who you know. Well, I think that's all the questions we have for tonight. I want to thank you all for joining us, even you, Key, for joining us. I appreciate it. Good to talk to you all, and I appreciate all the time you had.
Well, and I too want to thank everyone for joining us. I know we had a few technical difficulties, so we appreciate the audience bearing with us. In our world of COVID, we kind of have to roll with the punches when we're trying to do these live events. So thank you all for being patient. And just want to say thanks to each of you for joining us, sharing some stories, getting to know you all better. It's just great to hear some of the advice and some of the thoughts that you have. So Gretchen, thanks to you too for moderating, and Kristen for setting this up and partnering with the Alumni Association. And for anyone out there watching, we are partnering with a lot of different units on campus. So if you enjoyed tonight, please watch for other YouTube channel opportunities for Shock Talks in the future. But thank you all for joining us on today's International Women's Day, Shock Talk, Shocker Female Athletes. We really appreciate you being here with us.
Thanks.
Thanks, Courtney.
Have a great
Appreciate
night,
you.
everybody.
You too.